Hi, I'm Zoe. When I was 9 years old, my parents told me I was a curse. And then they left me on a doorstep with a backpack and no goodbye. They never looked back. Not for birthdays, not for graduation, not even when I built a life from nothing. 21 years later, they showed up again, but not for reconciliation. They came for money. Where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Morning slides across the desk like a quiet promise. Glass steel. The kind of clean that leaves nowhere to hide. I sit with coffee. I won't finish. And pull the black folder toward me. 3 words in block letters stare back. Curse. Custody. Cash. I wrote them that way so I would not forget the order they tried to make my life follow. I open it first. The digitized tape. Someone's old home video. Shaky and ugly, converted into a neat little file that never blinks. A girl with a backpack too big for her shoulders. A door that clicks like a verdict. I do not press play. I do not need to. I remember every frame because it lives under my skin. Behind the tape are the bank slips. 2 withdrawals. 14 days apart. Signatures I knew long before I could spell them. $24,000. That was supposed to be my cushion. If life fell apart, it did. The money left first. I run my finger along the edges until the paper warms. Proof is not comfort. Proof is scaffolding. You build on it so you never fall the same way twice. Then the stack of returned envelopes, cheap paper, tired corners, stamps scuffed by other people's weather. I keep one with a glitter sticker in the corner. It makes me honest about who I used to be. A kid who thought sparkle could glue a family back together. It could not. It never does. I keep them anyway. Receipts beat reputation. That is the rule. On top of it all sits the newest weight, the formal tuition request. $60,000 dressed up as family continuity. Then nudged to 120 when they sensed I would not fold. They cited the years they raised and supported me. The sentence sits in my throat like smoke. Raised is a generous word for a locked door. I do not cry. I do not pace. I calendar a call with my attorney for noon. The title is short, Tuition Demand Response. I print the email from the uncle who prefers sermons to facts. Blood matters. He wrote, "You were given a chance." He forgot to mention who took it. The printer hums like a small machine that believes in me. It spits truth in 12-point type. And I clip it to the letter with a gold binder clip I bought in bulk the week my company turned a corner. 3 sticky notes wait beside the keyboard. Record. Respond. Release. This is how I keep my hands steady. Record means I gather everything that tries to float away when old feelings rise. Screenshots, dates, names, the quiet details that hold up in daylight. Respond means I use short sentences. No adjectives and let the facts do the heavy lifting. Release means I refuse to carry what is not mine after I send it. Boundaries are a workflow if you let them be. I take a long breath and look at the office I built from grant proposals and nights that smelled like lemon cleaner and bacon grease. Shelves hold books I actually read. A plant I forget to water still leans toward the window because light is stubborn. On the wall is the drawing I remade as an adult. A little figure walking toward an open door. No dog, no chorus of approval, just light. When I glance at it, the noise in my chest goes down to a workable volume. Across the desk, the folder waits. Curse is what they named me to justify the mess. Custody is what they surrendered without paperwork. Cash is what they want now that the mess looks like a company with employees and outcomes and kids who send emails that say, "I signed a lease today because your checklist told me how." I say the 3 words under my breath and close my eyes once. Not a prayer, a sort of system reboot. I draft the day skeleton in my head. At 9, sort the documents into a shared drive with my attorney. At 10, outline a response that is 2 paragraphs. For sentences. 0 apology. At 11, touch base with my team about a scholarship batch. The rhythm calms me. Process is proof you survived long enough to design something better. I touch the folder one more time, then rest my palms on the desk. The past wants a reaction. It is not getting one. It is getting a plan. The difference is everything. When I was 9, the world went quiet in a way it shouldn't have. The kind of quiet that presses on your ribs. I can still feel the cold concrete under my shoes. The rough edge of the blanket an old neighbor draped around my shoulders. Her name was Ruth Kaplan. I didn't know then that she'd be the only person to open a door that night. The air smelled like damp leaves and exhaust. My mother's car idled long enough for me to think it was a joke, then drove off before I could say her name. The door to the house across the street, my grandparents' place, stayed closed. I remember the porch light burning like an accusation. Ruth didn't ask what happened. She just said, "Come inside, honey." Her house smelled like cinnamon and books that had lived a full life. She found a sweater for me, the sleeves hanging past my fingertips, and set a mug of tea on the table. I didn't drink it. I stared at it until the steam disappeared. I didn't cry that night. Crying felt like admitting it was real. I just watched her move around the kitchen. This small, steady woman who didn't fill the silence with questions. When she finally sat down across from me, she said, "You can stay here tonight. We'll figure the rest out later." That was the first sentence that ever made me feel safe. A week later, she found me at the window looking across the street at the house that used to be mine. She told me, "Some people break what they can't control." I didn't understand it then. I thought she meant my parents were angry. Later, I learned she meant they were afraid of anything that reminded them of their own failure. I became the reminder. I tried to reach them anyway. I wrote letters on cheap stationery Ruth bought me from the corner store. "Hi, Mom. I'm doing well. I miss you." I added stickers because I thought love needed decoration. I dropped each one in the blue mailbox by the door. Weeks later, they started coming back. Return to sender. One after another until I had a row of envelopes lying across my bedroom floor like soldiers that went to war for nothing. I lined them up perfectly. I told myself they were proof that I existed, even if no one answered. Proof was enough back then. By 15, I stopped waiting for mail. Ruth asked me to help her clear out an old kitchen cabinet that was starting to smell like dust and glue. Inside a stack of yellowed papers, I found a manila envelope with my name on it. Not to Zoe, just my name, like an afterthought. Inside were bank statements. My grandmother's account opened when I was born. It started with $500. Small deposits each year. The final balance, $24,000. Withdrawal date, 2 weeks after my parents left me on the porch. The signatures were theirs. Both of them. They hadn't just abandoned me. They'd taken what little safety net I had. I stared at the slips until the numbers blurred. That night, I didn't rage. I didn't break anything. I just drew a new picture. A house, a stick-figure version of me standing beside it. No parents, no dog, no make-believe family. Underneath in thick black marker, I wrote, "Start here." I pinned it above my desk, not as hope, as a blueprint. The drawing stayed there for years. Every time I looked at it, I felt the difference between what was lost and what I was building. Erasers used to hurt like a blade. Now it felt like negative space, a place I could fill with my own story. Ruth would catch me staring at it sometimes and say, "You don't have to understand everything right now. Just keep building." I didn't know then how literal that would become. If there's one thing I learned from those years, it's this. Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's a weapon. My parents used it like experts, but silence can be repurposed. I learned to use it like a boundary, a wall that doesn't have to be cruel to be strong. That's where everything started, with a blanket, a row of return letters, and $24,000 that vanished into someone else's idea of family. Graduation day should have felt like an ending, or at least a small victory. But when I walked into the auditorium that morning, something in me already knew what was coming. The program was glossy. Maroon letters across cream paper. I scanned the list of names, honors, achievements, scholarships. Mine wasn't there. They sat me in the back. A section marked overflow. For metal chairs near the exit. No tablecloth. No flowers. Someone said it was for quiet seating. It sounded like an apology dressed as courtesy. When they called the top students on stage, I clapped for every name. I smiled for every photo. I'd perfected that smile by then. The polite one that doesn't tremble. The one that says, "I'm fine, really." But when the ceremony ended and no one looked my way, the air around me felt hollow. It wasn't anger that hit me. It was recognition. I wasn't invisible by accident. I'd been written out on purpose. Later, Ruth took my hand, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. "You did it anyway," she said. That was all. It was enough. Years moved differently after that. I stopped waiting to be invited to tables that had already decided I didn't belong. I started building my own. I got a part-time job, saved, studied at the public library. I learned to code from free workshops and borrowed laptops. That's where the idea for OpenVest began. A resource hub for kids like me, kids who had nowhere to ask, "How do I even start?" The drawing I made at 15, the one that said "Start Here," became the logo. It was a child walking toward an open door. Sunlight spilling past the frame. It didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to exist. By 25, the site had grown faster than I expected. Donations, press mentions, volunteers from universities I could never afford. I didn't chase any of it. I just kept the promise I made to myself years earlier. Never let silence win twice. Then one morning, Ava dropped a newspaper on my desk. "You'll want to see this," she said, voice careful. It was a church newsletter from Cedar Rapids. Front page, the Carters celebrate their daughter's success. There was a smiling stock photo of a family, 3 people I barely recognized, and a paragraph claiming they'd supported my journey through hardship. I stared at it for a long time, not angry, just numb, the way someone feels reading their own obituary. Then I pulled out the old withdrawal slips, laid them side by side with the newsletter, and took a photo. Reputation versus receipts. It looked exactly like the math it was. That's when the insight hit me. The thing no one talks about. Families like mine don't erase you out of hatred. They do it out of performance. They rewrite the story so they can live comfortably inside it. They need a villain to make themselves look redeemed. I remember saying it out loud. Quiet, but certain. I was never the curse. I was the correction they couldn't handle. People ask how I stayed calm through all of this. The truth is, once you've been erased, facts become your oxygen. They keep you alive. So I started documenting everything: emails, letters, public mentions. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I knew one day they'd try to rewrite the past again, and I wanted to be ready. Hospitals smell like metal and coffee that's been reheated too many times. I was there with Ruth for a follow-up on her ankle. Fluorescent light, sterile walls, the hum of a vending machine that sounded like breathing. She was in the imaging room when I heard a voice I hadn't heard in 20 years. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm right here." My mother's voice. It wasn't aimed at me. She was standing a few yards away, hand on a young girl's shoulder, comforting, gentle, the kind of mother she had never been. Her hair was shorter, streaked with gray, but I would have known that tone anywhere. I froze where I stood. She looked up, met my eyes, and in one heartbeat, looked straight through me. No recognition, not even the kind a stranger offers, just absence. She walked past minutes later. Her perfume still smelled like lilac and cigarettes. My throat didn't tighten this time. I just stood there, silent, almost relieved. There was nothing left to lose. A few hours later, after Ruth was home and settled, my phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Saw you. Sorry." That was it. 2 words, no punctuation, no question. I typed back, "Thanks." Then turned the phone face down and went back to work. I used to think forgiveness required a conversation. Now I knew it only required distance. The next morning, Ava dropped an envelope on my desk. Cream paper, handwritten address, the kind of thing that pretends to be polite. I didn't have to open it to know it was from them. Inside was a formal request from their attorney. $60,000 for my younger brother's college tuition. They called it an act of family continuity. 2 paragraphs of legal English claiming it was fair because of the years we raised and supported you. I laughed once, short, real. They couldn't even steal quietly anymore. That afternoon, an email arrived from my Uncle Patrick. Subject line, family duty. His message read like a sermon. Blood matters. Zoe, you were given a chance. It's your turn to give back. I printed both documents, placed them on my desk, and clipped them together. There's a kind of calm that shows up when you've been through the same storm before and already built a roof. I called Denise, my attorney. "We're not going to reply emotionally," I said. "Everything in writing, preserved, time-stamped, copied to you. She agreed. We drafted a response protocol together. Simple, efficient, unemotional. Rule 1. Respond only in writing. Rule 2. Keep every message, every attachment, every envelope. Rule 3. Never negotiate through memory, only through evidence. That's when I wrote the 3 sentences that have saved me more than once. My boundary scripts. That's inaccurate. Here is what's documented. I don't do private negotiations about public harms. For all future contact, use counsel. The words sounded cold, but they were really just clarity. I slid the letters back into the black folder, curse, custody, cash, and realized they no longer scared me. They were simply records now. I leaned back, surprised at how I could feel compassion and attachment at once. I didn't hate them. I simply understood them. Some people confuse ownership with love. And when they can't own you, they call you ungrateful. I looked out at the golden Austin skyline and whispered, not today. I owed them nothing. I owed myself peace. The package arrived on a Tuesday, no return address. Just my name. Inside was a VHS tape and a shaky note. Found this in the garage. Thought it might be yours. I converted it and watched the grainy scene appear. A porch. A small girl with a giant backpack. Me. My father's voice. You don't live here anymore. A car door slammed, tires crunched, then silence. No crying, just wind. I watched once, then sat with the still frame. Proof undeniable, and suddenly I felt lighter. That night, I recorded a simple video. My name is Zoe Brooks. When I was 9, my parents left me on a doorstep and called me a curse. This isn't revenge. It's record-keeping. I posted it on OpenVest. Within days, millions of views. Not pity, solidarity. People who'd lived the same erasure. My parents stayed silent publicly, but messages trickled in. They're panicking. Then came the GoFundMe using my name, Jacob's face. Lies about my generous matching donation. They used me as PR. I called Denise. She was unfazed. Document everything. So I did, screenshots, dates, PDFs organized into unauthorized fundraiser evidence. Then I posted a calm PSA. If people who abandoned you try to rebuild their image with your name, document everything. The fundraiser vanished by morning. No celebration, just a quiet glance at the OpenVest seal. We're still here, I whispered and went back to work. Then media. A beige room pretending to be neutral ground. My parents walked in rehearsing normal. They spoke of family and helping Jacob. I asked which part of abandonment they considered a foundation. I laid out the folders, documents. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to document. Then the script I'd written for moments like this. That's inaccurate. Here is what's documented. I don't do private negotiations about public harms. For all future contact, use counsel. Their faces cracked. Entitlement collapsing always makes a sound. A week later, the court letter arrived. She owes you nothing. That same night, an invitation to Jacob's birthday, gold foil. Performative love. I went anyway. Sat at the overflow table. Ignored. On the back of the tent card I wrote, "This table was never mine." Then I left. Outside, Denise's email pinged. Ruling filed. Case closed. Receipts always win. At the courthouse, reporters asked for a statement. I gave them silence. Later, my parents appeared outside my office. My mother said, "You'll always be my daughter." I raised a calm hand. This success taught me what family is and what it isn't. You're free to go. She turned away first. A week later, OpenVest delivered emergency dorm kits in honor of Ruth Kaplan, who opened the first door. At home, I hung the drawing of the child walking toward an open door. I archived the curse custody cache folder, not to burn, but to keep as proof. The house was quiet, not lonely. Family isn't blood. Family stays. If this helped you choose boundaries, comment 01. If you need scripts, DM me. My silence isn't agreement. It's an upgrade.